Well, good morning. This is Friday, May the 1st. This is that little spring that I found that came up underneath this big chestnut oak tree, the stump. And what I've done is put a little dam in it, just mud and rocks and leaves. I figure if the beavers can do it, so can I. I put a hose in here, and then I dammed it up, and you can see the nozzle of the hose down in there, and it is siphoning water downstream, so I have running water up here. I think it'd be better for Mr. Harry to wash off his boots, and if I need to get some water for the saw shed, then I can do that. The water is dropping a little bit over time, so it's drawing more water than the spring is flowing. But that's okay, it'll all just run out of that hose. And if the weather picks up some, then the hose will take up the slack. But it'll just run right out of that hose because there isn't a loop in it. It all just is downhill from here. And there's Dolly, and she loves the water. She's the water dog. And there's the hose running downstream. And before this dries out, I'm going to go down and see how much water is flowing on the bottom side of it. This water in this creek is coming up from little springs all up this little valley right here. It's just runoff and going into the rocks and then finding an easy spot to come out. So this will kind of give you an idea where this little spring is. I'm high enough that if I needed to, I could run a hose over to the saw shed and have running water in the saw shed off of that little spring right there, gravity fed. I'd have to take care of the surplus or put a valve of some type on it, but I don't really want it to top that little dam and shut the water flow off now that it's running. So go down here and see how it's running. There's the other side of that little clump of trees right here. Hose is coming through. Come down here. All of this water now is coming out of a different spring. Not even sure which one or where it's at. Might be right there. So there's actually a significant amount of water coming out of that next spring, which tells me that if I want to pick up that water, then I need to locate my cistern down here if I'm going to put a cistern in. I think this is a really good location for a cistern pump. I can run that the water line up and over the top of the cut and down on the other side and run that cistern right here and pick up all this spring water. But here's the end of the hose. And you can hear it gurgling, so the water level in there is dropped down to where we're only getting the water that's coming through the spring at the time. I'd say that's maybe 1.5 to 2 gallons a minute, something like that. So with that, there's probably another couple of gallons a minute coming out of wherever the other spring is that's feeding this. And at 5 gallons a minute, that's enough water to supply our house without any difficulty at all. As long as we run a 500-gallon reservoir tank, we could just run everything that we want over here and have plenty of water for a family off of 5 gallons a minute. I think I'll just leave that on that stick right there. But we're now moving all of the water that's coming out of that spring directly through this hose. It's fairly clear. I don't think I'd drink it right now though. But it would be a water supply if we needed one. And I think this is a really good location for that cistern tank right down in here. There's Dolly's favorite pastime when she gets up here. Yesterday, she didn't get into it at all. She stayed completely dry and clean. And today, Dolly, what are you doing? Are you making up for what you didn't do yesterday? Oh, water dog. All right, well, don't shake off on me. There's the saw deck. I've got an inventory already starting to build. Most of that's going to disappear here in the next 2 weeks. That inventory of logs, those logs on top are really high dollar. I could sell those logs just like they are for $1.25 a foot. Most of them, not all of them, but some of them. It's tempting just to load them up and take them up to American Stave. There's the tent. Today I bought an umbrella to put on the west side of the saw head. That's the text message that I sent to Dad. I need that auger bit so I can mount that umbrella and have a place to keep the sun off me while I'm cutting. But I cut some more 2x6s yesterday for runners underneath the roof. That job in the middle there is that 1x4 order. It's ready to go. They're getting a good bit of extra boards on it. I've got some boards in it that I normally throw away, but I know these guys and they'll probably put them to use. So, really good friends of mine. And then I cut this white pine yesterday. The top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Top 8 layers of that I cut yesterday. So we're making good progress. Still need quite a bit more of this 2x6 material. I'm going to have to start a new stack here in a little while. It's getting too tall for me to stack it on there. Those top boards are 8 and the bottoms are 16s. But I need to start a new stack. And need to stack it over here on where these 2x4s are so they're out of the way. These 2x4s are really not very good. They're just surplus. Stuff that I salvage out of the log. I can't stand to throw that stuff away. There's a board for Dad. That's a 1 3/8 by 8 white pine. Really nice board. We call that a bottom board. That's all of the waste out of 4 white pine logs. That's not bad. I usually get that out of about 2. But I cut all these stickers yesterday. And instead of throwing that wood away, I've got a bunch of stickers out of it. And now when I ship a retail order of green lumber, I'm going to sticker it from now on. I think those guys will be a lot happier having stickered wood. There's the old stump grinder from Grounds that I bought several years ago and parked it up in the woods. I've ground out about 10 stumps with it. Did modifications so I could run it on the onboard hydraulics on my tractor. The bulldozer's too small for it actually. It can't carry it. It pulls the front end of the bulldozer right off the ground. But the tractor handles it okay. The shear pin on the main drive is broken right now, so I can't use it. But when I got it mounted, I hooked all the hydraulics up and it's still working fine. I had a little bit of trouble with this cylinder. It's bent, but it's always been that way. Well, at least since I got it, it was bent. I'm going to try and straighten it out one of these days and see if it'll work better, but it pulled the head back and that's good enough for me. There's the rest of it over there on the burn pile. I'm going to see if I can light that up today, but I don't think so. There's too much wind. So I'll probably just let it dry out for a few days and try and light it later. And this is a stump that I'm going to try and put on the sawmill and do a cross cut on it. It's really kind of hard to do. You got to have a real sharp blade. Take your time. But I have a customer that wants to try and make a tabletop out of a stump cut like this. And so this one came in. It's really pretty. I'm not sure if I can mount it. Let me measure it real quick. No, not even close. So I can't mount that. Here's another one. It's got a, it'd have a bevel on one edge. I really split that one into firewood. But that one is about the size that I can cut on the sawmill, and that one's too big. And a chainsaw cut really isn't something that I want to do on it. That's it for today's update.